On Thursday, police began searching offices at Deutsche Bank. Prosecutors say staff at Germany's largest financial institution might have helped customers set up offshore companies to launder money. After a series of scandals in recent years, the new accusation could hit the bank hard. The suspicion arose in the summer, in August of 2018, after the Federal Criminal Police Office evaluated data from the Panama Papers and the so-called offshore leaks. And this evaluation led to the suspicion that Deutsche Bank was helping clients set up so-called offshore companies in tax havens. And from there, money is said to have flowed to Deutsche Bank without the bank reporting any suspicion of money laundering. The allegations alone are enough to weaken an already embattled bank. Shares in Deutsche sank to their lowest levels ever on Friday, though the bank was quick to present its view of events. We believed that we'd provided all relevant information to the authorities regarding the Panama paper case. Of course, we'll now cooperate closely with the public prosecutor's office in Frankfurt. It's also in our interest that the facts in question are quickly and entirely cleared up. Attention will now turn to Deutsche's boss, Christian Sewing. He's only been in the top job since April, but he's been at the bank for decades. He already faces the challenge of reversing years of losses. Now it'll be up to him to address accusations that Deutsche hasn't only been mismanaged, but involved in far shadier, potentially criminal business. Pharma major Bayer is planning to cut around 12,000 jobs over the next 3 years. That's a tenth of its workforce. According to the company, the move will help it focus on its core activities, but that's not the only reason for it. 2 months after the German company bought American crop science giant Monsanto in June for a hefty $63 billion, a U.S. court ruling ordered Bayer to pay multi-million-dollar damages to a cancer sufferer. The judge said its newly acquired subsidiary should have warned users about the cancer risks from its Roundup herbicide. The company's shares have been under pressure since then, losing 36% since the beginning of the year. Because of the Monsanto takeover, Bayer's German crop science division will be among the hardest hit. There are now many divisions that the company has 2 of. Factories like this one in Lordstown, Ohio, were part of Donald Trump's plan to revive America's industrial base. But now it and 4 other factories General Motors plans to shutter won't be making anyone great again. At the start of the week, the American carmaker announced a complete restructure. The move will involve closing 5 factories in the U.S. and Canada and cutting a total of 14,000 jobs. The plans are part of a cost savings program at GM, which has, among other things, seen price hikes in steel imports subject to new tariffs. Additionally, the auto giant says it will end production of models with weaker sales and focus on more innovative areas like electromobility and autonomous vehicles. The U.S. president was apparently angry about the announcement that jobs would be lost. On Twitter, he threatened to slash federal subsidies, including those aimed at developing electric drive alternatives. The Canadian Prime Minister echoed Trump's sentiments.
We are disappointed by GM's decision regarding their plant in Oshawa as part of their global restructuring. Our thoughts are with those whose jobs will be affected and their families.
But most disappointed of all are GM staff that will be affected.
I've been here 28 years. I've been through a closure in Scarborough. I've been through a closure in London. I moved my family twice for this company. And they do this to me. It's terrible.
The 5 GM plants will halt production next year, laying off 3,300 production workers in the U.S. and about 3,000 in Canada. The company also plans to trim administrative staff by 8,000. £100 billion annually for the next 12 years. That's what Brexit will cost the British people. At least, that's according to a new study commissioned by proponents of a second referendum. It predicts that both trade and direct investment in the country are set to nosedive. The more neutral Bank of England also predicted dramatic consequences if Britain crashes out of the EU in a hard Brexit.
By the end of 2023, GDP is more than 10% lower in the disorderly scenario compared to that May 2016 trend.
The bank also said if the island nation has to leave the EU in a hard Brexit, the pound could plummet 25% against other major currencies. Even so, it's still far from clear that Theresa May will be able to push her agreement with the EU through a combative British Parliament, although she's doing all she can to give things a positive spin.
What we see behind the analysis that we have published today, and indeed the Chancellor recognised this morning, is that our deal is the best deal available for jobs and our economy that allows us to honour the referendum and realise the opportunities of Brexit.
The analysis carried out by the government also shows Britain's economy will suffer even if the deal goes through. So the big question is, just how bad will the damage be? Shortly before the vote on December 11th, Brexit remains as contentious as ever.